Cześć, dzień dobry, Artur Wiśniewski, stockbroker.pl. To jest piątek i piątkowa pasywna rewolucja. Ja powoli dochodzę do siebie po trudach związanych z organizacją konferencji Jak inwestować na giełdzie, która odbyła się w zeszłym tygodniu. Konferencja, która zebrała prawie 6000 osób. 6000 osób zarejestrowało się na tę konferencję. Konferencja, której spora część materiałów dotyczyła inwestowania w ETF, bo mniej więcej 1/4 wszystkich wykładów dotyczyła właśnie tego tematu. Gośćmi specjalnymi konferencji byli Hector McNeil oraz Andrew Dickey, a dziś emisja specjalna rozmowy, jaką z nimi przeprowadził Kamil Szymański z mBanku. Zapraszam Was serdecznie na wspólne oglądanie. W pierwszej kolejności przedstawię Wam bohaterów naszej rozmowy. W środku Kamil Szymański z mBanku, znany promotor inwestowania w fundusze ETF. Na pewno dobrze znacie go z licznych konferencji, w których występował, opowiadając o ofercie ETF-ów, o rynku ETF, o tym, jak inwestować w ETF-y. Kamilowi udało się dotrzeć do dwóch naprawdę wyśmienitych gości. Hector McNeil jest prezesem jednego z większych europejskich dostawców funduszy ETF, HANetf, a jeżeli chodzi o ETF-y tematyczne, to na pewno jest to jeden z liderów. Oraz Andrew Dickey, to jest drugi gość z firmy The Royal Mint, z brytyjskiej firmy, która niektórzy mogą nie kojarzyć, ta nazwa nie do końca wskazuje, czym oni się zajmują. Mint, no nie chodzi o miętówki, nie zajmują się produkcją miętówek, bynajmniej, chyba że ktoś czuje miętę do inwestowania w złoto. To tak podpowiem, że jest to firma, która po prostu od około 1000 lat zajmuje się złotem. Kamil Szymański przeprowadził z nimi rozmowę tak naprawdę na temat trendów na rynku ETF. Chciałbym Was serdecznie zaprosić na tą rozmowę. Rozmowa będzie w języku angielskim, natomiast będą polskie napisy. Serdecznie Was zapraszam do wspólnego oglądania.
Welcome to our webinar, which is part of the How to Invest on the Stock Exchange conference hosted and organized by stockbroker.pl. My name is Kamil Szymański. I work for the brokerage business at mBank, and I'm here with two phenomenal speakers, Hector McNeil from HANetf and Andrew Dickey from Royal Mint. It's brilliant to have you here, guys. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Kamil. Thank you.
This webinar is mainly about Han ETF and about Royal Mint. But before I hand over to you, I wanted to do a brief introduction on ETF sales in Poland. Now, it's hard to imagine, but ETFs only a few years ago, they were nearly unheard of in Poland. Now, I've always been very optimistic about the development of ETF market in Poland, and I wanted to back up this optimism with some facts and figures. And if I could have the first slide, please. And so what you see here is the number of clients trading exchange traded funds and ETPs monthly on marketing in Frankfurt and London. And we're talking about just mBank and just retail clients. This graph is stretching back to January 2019. And as you can see, the ETFs were gaining in popularity throughout most of 2019. We've gone from around 100 clients trading at least one ETF per month into 200, 300, 400, and so on. But March last year has been a breakthrough. Well, at the beginning of the pandemic, the interest in ETFs shot up, and the monthly usage has gone up way over 2,000 per month, and it stayed there until the end of the year, where at the 3rd of December, at the turn of 2020 and 2021, the monthly usage has gone above 6,000, and in total, we've had over 10,000 clients last year who purchased at least one exchange traded fund. So the interest of clients in Poland in ETFs is phenomenal, but still most investors probably wouldn't know what ETF is. So it's a very exciting time where the sales is picking up, but there's still so much potential for more. What we'll see in the next slide is that what happens in Poland is part of a much bigger picture. Now, ETF is a global phenomenon. The first one was listed in New York in 1993. That ETF is still being traded in New York, and it is today the biggest financial product in the world. And what we can see here is that the number of ETFs being traded globally and assets under management as well. 2016 is when we've introduced ETFs to our offer. From 2016 onwards, our clients can trade global ETFs through our investment platform. And probably 2020 is the first year in history when clients in Poland contributed a bit to this global demand for ETFs and exchange traded products. So if we move to another slide, what we'll see is what's been driving the demand so far. Now, from the very beginning, commodities been extremely popular, and we're talking mainly about gold, silver, and oil. And it was gold, silver, and oil that's driven this demand in February, March, April last year. Oil is probably more speculative the product, but gold and silver has been very, very popular. The demand for it was very high and very stable from the very beginning since we've introduced ETFs to our platform until today. Now, what's happened towards the second part of the year was that clients' interest shifted towards thematics as well. And so when we talk about thematic ETFs, our clients are interested in themes like clean energy, cybersecurity, digitalization, video gaming, blockchain, and many, many, many more. So between commodities, gold, silver, and oil, and thematics, we've got covered probably 60% of all ETF types and exchange traded products by our clients. And we've seen a very stable demand for commodity products and rising interest in thematics. And this is probably a very good moment to hand over to Hector. And Hector, why don't you introduce us to HANetf, your unique approach to ETFs, and give a bit of an intro to your collaboration with Royal Mint.
No problem. Thanks very much, Kamil. Very, very happy to be here today and doing my first webinar for Polish investors. I see myself as a very passionate ETF, entrepreneur, veteran, and somebody who's been around the industry for a long, long time. Han actually stands for Hector and Nick. So my business partner, Nick Biankowski, which you can probably tell by his surname, he has some Polish heritage. He's Australian Polish descent. His father was Polish, and it's been a sort of wish of ours to offer something in that market for a while now. So we welcome the chance to dip our toe with this. Actually, mine and Nick's fourth ETF business. We were founders and owners of ETF Securities, Boost ETP, and then WisdomTree Europe. At ETF Securities, we actually invented the world's first gold ETF. We did that back in the early 2000s in Australia, and we brought the first one to Europe, which was Gold Bullion Securities, which is now part of the WisdomTree stable. And we sort of, almost had as much gold as the fourth largest holding in the world at one point at ETF securities. We were, I think the only ones ahead of us was the US, French and German central banks. So I used to call our gold ETFs the people's central bank because it was such a democratic way for people to hold gold. So we set Han ETF up in 2017. And the idea being we would be a white label ETF provider because we thought the next wave of ETFs coming to market would be around asset managers or organizations that had great content, history and experience in either the asset management world or the world that they represented. And to do that, we felt it was really important to have an ability to issue ETFs in an efficient and speedily fashion, and then have the whole team behind it to manage it. So we've got over 250 years of combined European ETF experience in the Han business, 35 plus people. And we've got a great shareholder base as well. So for example, one of our shareholders is Blake Grossman, who was the CEO at BGI when they invented iShares. You know, so we go back a long, long way in terms of not just ourselves, our shareholders, but also our DNA. And just a measure, Nick and we've issued over 550 ETFs and ETPs in our career, which is about 6% of the world's total, as you can see. So it's a fair number of products. Next slide, please. So you can see here, this is the Han AUM combined across the platform. Currently, we have real assets such as gold with the Royal Mint, which Andy's going to talk about. We've also got one of the leading thematic ETF offerings in Europe, and we're about to add another 15 within the next 10 weeks to that space. I mean, given that the whole amount of ETFs, thematic ETFs issued the whole of last year was about 17, you can see that we really want to own that space and be the leading provider of thematics in Europe. But you can also see that, you know, from this chart, you know, there's been a huge amount of interest from investors, particularly in our crypto offering, which now extends to Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. In fact, our BTC, our Bitcoin product, is the most traded ETF in Europe currently. Next slide, please. So this is our current offering, which is pretty deep. Everything from ESG products like decarbonisation, enablers. We've got two e-commerce ETFs, one EMQQ, which actually was the best performing EM fund in the world last year. But we also were the first guys to bring cloud technology ETFs to Europe. We brought the first medical cannabis ETF to Europe. You know, and as I mentioned before, you know, various other structures such as 5G infrastructure with Digi, and the crypto products like BTCE, and as we're going to talk about in a minute, the Royal Mint physical gold. So as you can see, it's a very varied offering, and say expanding all the time. We've been in the market for a little over 2 years, so we're really trying to bring investors, you know, really interesting products with stories, I always call it. I love, you know, where you can get excited just talking about a product and what it's trying to do, the theme it's trying to replicate and bring to the market, versus, you know, the Commoner Garden Eurostoxx 50 at 2 basis points cheaper than the last guy. That's not our business. Our business is all about what I call value add. You know, if I wanted to give a comparison, I think we're the delicatessen of the ETF market rather than the supermarket provider. So that's really where I'll end up here, and I'll pass over to Andy.
Andy, obviously I think Royal Mint is a fascinating company. Now, Han ETFs has been around has been established a few years ago. Royal Mint has been established way over 1,000 years ago. You're literally one of the oldest companies in the world. And I would imagine, you know, to be around for 1,000 years, the company's got to be pretty good at reinventing yourself. And I think the way you've teamed up with Han ETF to introduce gold exchange traded product is a brilliant example of that. So I say no more, and I hand over to you. And please tell us a bit more about the Royal Mint and about your gold product.
Yeah, delighted to. Thanks, Kamil. Thanks, Hector. So yes, absolutely. I'm the divisional director for precious metals at the Royal Mint. As Kamil and Hector have just kind of indicated, last February, so February 2020, we teamed up with Han to launch what is actually the first sovereign mint-backed ETC in the world. And it quickly became the fastest growing gold-backed ETC in Europe, which we're really, really proud of. As Kamil's mentioned, we are one of the oldest, well, we're certainly the oldest company in the UK, one of the oldest companies across the world. We've been going for 1100 years. I believe that there is a samurai sword manufacturer in Japan that's older than us, but I'll let them have that one. We aren't just in the precious metals business. Obviously, we are one of the leading currency manufacturers and providers for over 100 countries around the world. Thank you. Next slide, please. I think the key thing for us to mention here is that one of the reasons why we've been going for 1100 years is that we've always been quick to seize upon innovations and spot cultural trends and meet customer needs. And that's why we've been managed to evolve over 1100 years. The ETC felt like the natural evolution in our product portfolio. And in launching the gold-backed ETC, RMAU, we're looking to make it easier than ever before to accumulate gold savings through the Royal Mint. We've been crafting and authenticating precious metals since the 14th century. So it's certainly within our DNA. You know, we are known as the authentic home of precious metals. And it's that authenticity that is one of our key kind of brand characteristics that's carried us through the last 1100 years. Next slide, please. As well as that authenticity, we are, of course, trusted by over 100 countries around the world to manufacture and deliver their currencies. Precious metals, as I say, you know, is within our DNA. We've been working with it since the 14th century. And indeed, we were putting precious metals into our mass-produced currency right up until the outbreak of the First World War. And we are a manufacturer, we're a crafter. We see ourselves as the original maker of coinage and bullion products. One of the best examples of that is the new bullion, the physical 1 ounce gold bullion coin that we released last year, the new Britannia 2021. And we've put in on that coin 3 fantastic new visual security features, which was described by the industry last year when we released it as a game changer. So we are very much leading the way, we see anyway, both with our kind of technical innovation on a physical bullion side of things, but also through the launch of the ETC and our digital product portfolio as well. Next slide, please. So as I said there, and the 1 ounce Britannia 2021 coin is a great example of it. We are the UK's primary producer of gold and silver and platinum bullion coins. Our UK customers and investors really appreciate the physical coins because they are, of course, capital gains exempt. And we are world renowned for iconic bullion coins such as the Sovereign, which was seen as the original precious metals bullion coin back in the day, and obviously the Britannia now, which is our kind of core leading physical product. And we also are increasingly moving into the bullion bar market as well. And we've got a range of beautiful products in the bar side of things. Most recently, we launched from our Great Engravers series, the Una and the Lion bar, which was an homage to one of the oldest coins ever produced by the Royal Mint, the Una and the Lion 1 ounce gold coin. Thank you. Next slide, please. So why gold? Well, I think it should be clear to most people, certainly over the last 12 to 18 months, exactly why gold is in such demand. I think COVID really brought gold out into the mainstream, and certainly as a business, the Royal Mint has welcomed not only investors at the sophisticated end of the spectrum, but also the mass market as well, mums, dads, families, have recognized, thanks to everything that we're doing in the space and that Han are doing in the space, but also industry companies such as the World Gold Council are doing to promote the benefits of gold within a diversified portfolio. By providing a range of products from physical all the way through to digital, the Royal Mint are making it easier than ever before to invest with us. That means that gold is more liquid than ever before as well. There is a general recognition that gold should form a certain part of your diversified portfolio. And that's largely because, and you just need to visit the World Gold Council for evidence of this, it's proven to deliver returns over a historical period of time. And just to emphasize that point, if you could go on to the next slide, please. This is a direct quote from the World Gold Council's website, who obviously are one of the leading bodies on promoting gold. Their extensive analysis suggests that adding between 2 and 10% of gold to a pound sterling based portfolio will make a tangible improvement to performance and boost risk adjusted returns on a sustainable long-term basis. Next slide, please. And that leads us to our ETC, with the ticker RMAU. As I said right at the very start, we are the first sovereign mint to launch a gold-backed exchange-traded fund, and we are so proud of what we've achieved alongside Hector and the fantastic team at Han. As I say, we're listed on a number of stock exchanges around Europe. And I'm very, very proud to say that we are a good delivery recognized provider. So all of the gold that is used and backs the gold ETC is LBMA approved good delivery bars. And that's something that we've worked really hard to be able to bring to the market. We were the first, I believe, to be able to do so in the marketplace. So something to be really proud of from the Royal Mint and Han ETF's perspective. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Andy. That was really interesting. As I said, gold is extremely popular amongst our clients. Your product is one of ETCs that are available through our trading platform, and it's been really good to hear from you about the gold market and your product as well. Now, I wanted to now go back to the third slide that I've shown when I mentioned that other than gold, thematics are extremely popular. So we're talking about the commodities that's been thousands of years old, and thematics. Well, they've been around for about 10 years time, maybe more, than getting more popular. So Han, Hector, if you could tell us a bit more about thematics, their growth in popularity, and what's the most recent developments in that area.
Oh, Hector, you're on mute, Hector, sorry.
Classic Zoom error, apologies. Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point, because thematics have been around for a long time, and you know, it's only been very recently that they've gained, you know, real momentum and traction. I mean, you could buy thematics, you know, for decades through investment trusts and various other vehicles like that. And we had a whole range of thematic ETFs when we were at ETF Securities, you know, around about the 2008, 2009 times, but they failed to take off at that time. And I think what's changed dramatically has been that, you know, technology, you know, around the index construction and the scalability of that has really opened the door and democratized that area of investments. And the sophistication around liquidity as well, global liquidity, has meant that bid-offer spreads, you know, can come in quite dramatically. So I think the sort of ecosystem around the ETF market has greatly facilitated the ability to issue thematics, and probably it's the fastest growth area in the ETF market as we speak. And this chart really, really warrants that and is evidence of it. And as you can see that, there's been a, significant growth trend, over the last 3 to 4 years, with it peaking last year, particularly around, COVID, from a perspective that's, a bit like gold. COVID really brought out some really strong investment trends, that were probably there, but were expedited and amplified by, by the work from home or the changing mega trends, as we call them, in the markets. And as you can see quite clearly from here, it was a bit of a landmark year last year, with 9.5 billion of new assets going into thematic ETFs. I think something like a total of 20 new products were available then. So you've definitely seen that momentum. Next slide, please. I think the areas that we see as being interesting for the future, and areas we're probably going to be dipping our toe into, are some quite out there products. I mean, currently, as I mentioned before, we very much focus on the mega trends that are out there, whether it's the e-commerce story with EMQQ and iBuy. And actually, interestingly, Kamil, you're probably well aware that those products have sister products in the US. EMQQ is a $2.5 billion ETF, been around for 5 years in the US. iBuy, similarly, is a $2 billion ETF issued by Amplify, and their sister products, available in UCITS for the first time. Then there's sort of new products that we brought to market, such as the cloud technology products. And what I really like is iTech, because it's 8 mega trends in one product that's equally weighted, and really the nature of that is it's a great alternative to the NASDAQ 100, because it's only got 5% of its allocation to the FANGs, to Facebook, Amazon, etc., which, give context for that. Apple's now bigger than the FTSE 100, and I think there's only 2 companies that are bigger than Netflix now in Europe. So it really does give a context for how big these companies are, but also they can sort of damp returns in a market capitalization type index. So equal weighting in a way makes a lot of sense for thematics, and iTech's performance was around about 15% better than the NASDAQ 100. So you haven't lost anything from performance by being more diversified and being equally weighted, and you're got a bit more drawdown protection if there's a sell-off in the markets. But I think we're only touching scratching the surface of what's going to be available, and even just talking about what we're going to have available at HAN in the next 10 weeks. We're going to have space, clean energy. We're looking at having clean energy with the first ETF in the world that will have a carbon offset. So not only will you have the ESG index, but you'll be able to net out the carbon exposure of the companies by using a carbon offset program off the back of that. So we think that will be as meaningful as currency hedged was to some ETFs, 4 or 5 years ago. So we're very excited about that. ESG gold miners, airlines, hotels and cruise lines, which we're very excited about because it's a bit of a recovery trade. I mean, I don't know what's the story in Poland today, but if you turned on the radio this morning, Kamil, in the UK, it's about everybody booking their holidays on the anticipation that things are going to get a little bit better with regards to COVID. I think it's a little bit hopeful, but my wife has actually just booked our holiday this morning for New Year's, so fingers crossed. Big things like genomics, solar, even things like cleaner living, right? People want to invest alongside their ethics and their morals, and some of that cleaner living that's about, food, exercise, all those types of areas that, they want to reinforce and make companies, be a little bit more better corporate citizens. We're seeing the enterprise software and blockchain ecosystem. We've all seen the rise in the crypto markets and floats recently like Coinbase and CoinShares, and quite obviously, people want to get access not just to the underlying cryptos, but actually the ecosystem that's involved in that. So that's what we're seeing, and I'd say the general themes coming out the thematic world is going to be probably the strongest one being ESG, ESG investing, and I think the E and the S are pretty well covered, and I think you might see more of the governance side coming. In the US, we're seeing some things like diversity ETFs or LGBTQ type ETFs. And I think that will be more prevalent over time. But certainly, and then on the other side, you'll see still more technology type thematic products, resting on those sort of mega trends that are coming. I mean, you only have to see Apple's results last week to realize that that isn't over, and certainly is going to be still, incredibly significant going forward from a momentum perspective, particularly if Biden has his way in the US and, connectivity and infrastructure will include digital connectivity and infrastructure, which we feel very strongly about with our 5G Digi products, because that really is about warehouses and data warehouses and, infrastructure around that world. And actually, in a way, that's quite a nice diversifier for investors as well, because a lot of the tech ETFs have similar sort of holdings around the sort of, the cloud or the software space, whereas the digital infrastructure is a whole different set of companies and an outlook there. So I think you're going to find more of that. And I think the innovation that you're seeing from index providers in the industry is really amplifying that. And, what's going to be really interesting, Kamil, I think you're going to see Europe leading the way as well. You're going to see some rather than products coming from the US to Europe, I think you're going to see products going from Europe to the US because we're first to market in lots of those. I mean, you're seeing that pretty much in the crypto market where, there's every day you see a news item about will the SEC approve, the first US-based crypto ETF. I mean, they always call it the first crypto ETF in the world on the basis that nowhere else exists but the US, but we've had those things here for a couple of years. So, and something like BTCE, it's, it was, for the last 3 months, it's been the most traded product on the Deutsche Börse, so there's definitely investor demand out there, and as we all know, what's great about ETFs is the most democratic wrapper you can get for investors, so I always say my mum in the north of England can trade one share of blockchain equities, for the first time in her life and stick it in a savings account and not worry about it. And that's really revolutionary, I think, and really democratizing that my mum can have the same sort of treatment as the biggest investors in the world, and that can only happen through having an ETF that's listed on an exchange that everybody has access to. So very exciting times.
Oh, thanks a lot for that. No, it's absolutely fascinating, and the way the market in Europe is developing. I remember a few years ago we had to sort of realign our offer because our offer was based around US ETFs, and for regulatory reasons related to KID document not being issued in the US. Ourselves, like most brokers in Europe, we had to withdraw US ETFs from our offer. And I remember back then in 2018, the European, what was available in Europe was sort of most indexes were covered, like S&P 500 or FTSE 100 and so on. But still, the what was available in Europe, it was sort of poor man's version of what was available in the US, and now it's changed completely in the space of a few years. So many new ETFs came out, and some of those ETFs became extremely popular. Assets under management has gone up in value dramatically. So it's a very interesting time. But before we wrap up and before we finish, I wanted to ask you one question each. And Hector, talking about thematics, that there's so many of them coming out right now. And a few years ago, it was sort of cybersecurity, maybe clean energy, automatization, those kind of things, luxury goods. But now there's so many of them coming out to the market. And if I could ask you a sort of crystal ball question, in 10 years' time, if you're looking at all those thematics right now, all those themes right now, in 10 years' time, which one of them you think is going to be most relevant?
I'll answer that with two answers, if that's okay.
That's okay.
I mean, there's two ends of the market, and I'll tell you why I think that they're probably the most relevant. And I'll probably answer it with, which ETFs I would buy for my children's pension, right? Because that's
okay.
really far out there. And the first one I'd buy is EMQQ, the Emerging Market E-commerce ETF, because I just think that, when you've got a weight of billions of people who are, just waking up to consumerism, I think that's, I think it was E&Y that said that's I think McKinsey said it was the biggest single economic opportunity in the history of the world, because it's all about consumerism, and the enabler is cloud technology and the mobile phones, because my wife's of African descent, and if you go to Ghana, where her parents are from, everybody pays for everything on their phone. They get credit on their phone. They'll go and buy everything on their phone, and there's no bricks and mortar retail there. It's bypassed that. We're seeing that in China. We're seeing it all over the world. And recently, there was even a Polish company joined EMQQ in its index, because everywhere in the world is seeing a massive rise in consumerism. So that's one end of what I would buy. It encapsulates a lot of aspects in terms of technology, but also that consumer story. And the second one I would buy is Well, which is our sort of healthcare megatrends ETF, because obviously with aging populations, everybody's getting older and surviving longer, and obviously we've had the COVID crisis, which has probably paused a lot of healthcare technology advances. But in a way, COVID's like a war, and when you have wars, technology advances much quicker than it does in ordinary times. And I think that sort of healthcare technology story is not only a mega trend worth investing in, it's also a bellwether, because it shouldn't be as volatile as other areas of thematic investing. It should be more conservative and more of a long-term trend. And just to be clear on that, it also avoids big pharma. So big pharma isn't where I'll put my money in the healthcare. I'd put it in the healthcare technology in the megatrend sector. So those two are the ends I would be investing in if I was going to pick megatrends and thematics that make sense for the long term.
Okay, so it's healthcare innovation and emerging markets, e-commerce. Okay, so now going back to gold, that's been around for thousands of years. I would imagine 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, people would say, "Yeah, I would put my savings into gold." And Andy, again, a bit of a crystal ball question to you, and maybe a bit of philosophical question as well. But gold has been around for thousands, probably one of the oldest commodities and assets known to man since the dawn of civilization as we know it. But now, times are changing so fast. People's attitude to things is changing so fast. Do you think, what would need to happen, or is it even possible for gold in those ever-changing times to lose its status as an ultimate safe haven of all safe havens? Is it something you even consider possible, or can you imagine what would need to happen for gold to use this status that it's had for thousands of years?
It's an interesting question. I can't see gold soon, and I think the ultimate test, based on all the other investment alternatives, Bitcoin and the like, that are out there right now, I think the ultimate test was COVID, and the fact that we saw such demand going into the precious metals market at a time of, absolute crisis, across the world, just shows how valued and how desirable gold still is. It's the ultimate store of physical wealth. Even when you're investing in our gold-backed ETC, the physical gold is sat in the Royal Mint's vault, one of the safest, most secure locations around the world, sitting outside of the financial institutions that many investors are sometimes quite wary of. So it's physical, it's immutable, it's tangible, and you've got to remember that 50% of gold demand doesn't actually come from the investment market. It comes because it's a desirable metal. 38% of gold demand goes into the jewelry sector because it's pretty, basically. It's desirable. People want it. And then 8% of that demand comes from the technology sector. So it's not just it's not just a lump of yellow metal. It's used for a number of different purposes. And as you yourself said, Kamil, it's been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years as the ultimate store of wealth.
And Kamil, just to chuck in there with RMAU, it's actually the only gold ETF in Europe that you can actually physically redeem for coins and bars as well. So if the end investor, really wants to get delivery off their underlying gold, they can do that with the Royal Mint, because it's their core business. Their core business is, selling and shipping gold bars and coins all over the world. So we've really leaned into that with RMAU, and you can actually receive your gold in coins and bars if you want to do that. And that's a real good comfort blanket for investors who are, at the more paranoid end of the scale. So I thought that was worth just adding to Andrew's pitch.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. We've covered different products and different asset classes from gold to the latest technologies, and I think one of the points that I want to raise to anyone who's listening to us is that I think this is the beauty of ETFs and exchange traded products, because we talked about things like gold, physical gold. We've mentioned silver, oil. We've mentioned the most recent technologies, the most recent advances in technology, healthcare, e-commerce, and so on and so on. But all those things can be accessed through really simple product that can be purchased through a stock exchange. And as you've mentioned, Hector, ETFs really democratize the access to investment. So whether you're someone who's living up north in England or down south in Poland, all investors have equal access to those products, and they can purchase them, they can invest in them, whether they're looking at gold or whether they're looking at the most recent technologies. Guys, it's been absolute pleasure. Thanks a lot, and to all our listeners, if you wanted to, if you like what we talk about, if you wanted more info, I would invite everyone to visit our respective websites. So Thank you everyone for listening. And once again, Hector, Andy, thanks as well. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Kamil. Appreciate it.